Let's be real. There is nothing about transitioning jobs, advancing your career, recovering from job loss that is ever going to be easy. There are no guarantees that whatever job that you have, whatever job that you're looking for, that it is always going to be there. There is a possibility that you could lose your job or need to shift or transition in some kind of way at any moment. And I say this from experience. I have been that person where I thought I was the high performer, that I was bringing in the dollars, that everybody liked me, so to speak, that I would never be on the receiving end of a layoff. But that did happen. And I did a lot of things wrong when I was looking for my next opportunity. And I think I focused too much on the things that were not within my control, and it stressed me out. My anxiety was crazy. I was moody, definitely had an emotional reaction to it because it seemed like everything I was doing just wasn't producing the results. Now, when I work with clients with their own career journey, I always try to get them to separate the things that are within their control from the things that are outside of their control. And what I teach them, the strategy to kind of be able to separate that and put positive energy to what's going to really be impactful, that's what I want to teach you in this episode. So if this sounds good to you, stick around, and I'm first going to outline the things that are outside of your control versus the things that you do need to spend positive energy on that are within your control. So let's get right into it. Hey there, welcome to the Melanated Midlife podcast. My name is Akilah, and I am your guide here to all of the things that are upgrading your midlife experience. And one of the things that I take a lot of time to focus on is how you are taking control of your career during this midlife season. So many of the people that I work with have been in a particular industry or in a particular organization for the majority of their, like their big girl jobs. This was the thing or the place that they went to when they felt like they finally had a real grown up, stable job. And then they get to their late 40s and their 50s, and maybe there's some things that just don't feel as comfortable anymore, some things that just don't feel like it's paying them back the way they originally wanted. That is when they have this light bulb moment and they start wanting to make a transition. And you might be in that same situation where you're thinking, you know what, I've been loyal to this company and they're just not recognizing my talents. I've been passed over for a few positions, and you just feel like so many things are happening to you that you don't have a lot of control over. Well, I want to spend some time today to really talk about, yes, there are some elements of your career and just the job market in general that you don't have a lot of control over. So we want to be able to separate those things kind of off the plate, off your shoulders, and focus on the things that are within your control. And with those things that are within your control, there are some simple steps that you can do to make sure that you stay in the game, that you're on top of those, to have them razor sharp so that you can be successful in whatever your career goals are from this day forward. Now, I want to tell you a story of somebody that came to me, potential client, and this girl was bad. She was bad. We were roughly about the same, are roughly about the same age. And she came to me saying that she wanted me to basically update her resume, which is a service that I have provided for many folks, and it ain't cheap. So when folks say, hey, I want you to update my resume and that's it, I'm like, okay, totally cool. I'm willing to do that for you. And, it's a business transaction, but I always ask more probing questions. And so with this person, fabulous, fabulous. When I tell you she's bad, has all of the impressive qualifications. She is a standout in her current organization. And there was a job posting that she saw on LinkedIn where she was pretty much like, that job was written for me. That job posting is exactly what I do. I can show up and just kill it. And yeah, she said, can you, put my resume together so that I can then apply for this position? And, as a good career coach, I'm going to ask a few more questions to make sure that what you're asking for is going to be the right move to make you successful. So, I asked her a few more questions and I was like, yeah, you're right. You are a stellar candidate for this particular job role, but you're not going to get that job. And she was like, what? She was stunned. She was like, whoa, 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 what you talking about? And so I had to break it down for her and say, okay, here's the thing, because in the questions that I asked her, I was really asking about what research, what other legwork she had already done to position her for that role. And she did not know anybody at the company, at the new company. She didn't have or didn't reach out or research within her own existing network to see if there might be somebody that is adjacent to the company or to the role, or they might know someone that's associated with the company or that role that could make an introduction for her. She also had not had any opportunities to really interact with this organization at other events or conferences or whatever. So she basically was applying just as a stranger to the company. And I told her, I said, this is actually going to be something that you can, one of those things that you can control, one of those things that you can change before you apply. And so the steps that I gave her were very easy. They weren't techy, and it was something, some strategies that she could put into place within 7 days. So in less than a week, she was able to do these things that I guided her through and then apply for the job. Well, long story short, just like I originally said, she did not get that job. But what she did get was a position that she found through the networking tips that I gave her. And it was a role that wasn't even posted. It was one of those inside roles where someone within her network was able to give her some inside information. She was able to do a little bit of research, talk to the right people, and then get in position for that particular role. And it was a better fit, in my opinion, and I think she agrees too, than what she was originally targeting. So the moral of the story is that one of the things that was right there in front of her, something she was able to leverage, was the contacts that were already within her professional network. But I think she was assuming, and like a lot of us that are Gen X over 50, we assume that we're going to apply for something and that's the only part of the process, that we submit the application, submit a crispy, beautiful resume, and the next day, a recruiter is going to call us and ask for an interview. And that's just not how it works anymore. Most of the times when you apply online, your application just goes into the digital ether. And the systems that are in place with online job boards, they are designed really just to filter out people. It's really matching keywords that are in your resume to whatever the posting is. And even if you match those keywords or match those skill sets and everything else perfectly, there's still about 500 to 1,000 other people that are applying for that same role. And to think that your chances are so good that you're going to be a part of the small group that they filter down to get that interview and to ultimately get hired is very, very narrow. I'm not here as a career coach to discourage you. I'm here to make sure that you understand what's already in your pocket, what things you already have that allow you to basically skip the line. That's always my goal, is to help you do things where you get in front of those other 500 applicants that clicked apply at the same time that you did. And if you're somebody that's over 40, over 50, your network is probably the strongest thing that you have to leverage whenever you're thinking about making a transition. So that is the number one thing that you're able to control. And I want you to just remember that. If you don't learn anything else from this episode, I want you to remember that. And by the way, if that is something that you are wanting to go a little bit deeper with, this is a service that I provide. I actually teach a class where I guide midlife professionals to do things like this one potential client that I talked to. We dig deep into your network. We dig deep into your existing skill set and other things that you've already done to position you for the most successful career transition. So if that is something that you're interested in, I actually have a class that I teach, a live class that I teach in small groups. And the link in the description is going to give you more information about that if you'd like to join us for the next cohort. Now, let's talk about the things that are outside of your control. These are the things that I want you to just kind of take your energy away from them because you can't do anything about them anyway. So, the first thing that is outside of your control is what's happening with the job market. And it doesn't matter what year we are in, it doesn't matter the season within the year. It doesn't matter what, who the current federal administration is. It doesn't matter because, well, I won't say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's impacting you, but it's not something that you can control. So when I have folks that are sitting back, waiting for the market, the job market to get stronger, waiting for some signs that the hiring is trending upward or what have you. And as a result, they cling to the existing job that they have because it's quote unquote, I'm going to use my air quotes, it's quote unquote safe. Where I am and what I do is safe. The organization that I'm with is always going to need me. And that just simply isn't true because everything evolves. The one guarantee that we have is that things are always going to shift and change. And I say this as the daughter of a retired truck driver. And I remember that's something that my dad used to say, as he was very confident as a career truck driver that we would always need that industry for shipping and just to power other industries, that we would always need people that could transport goods from one place to another via those big 18 wheelers. And for the most part, for his entire career, that was true. And here we are in this day and age, present day, where there is the introduction of driverless 18 wheelers. And it freaked me out when I saw it because I'm like, oh my God, there's in my home state, there's actual 18 wheelers that are being run, just what do you call it? Heck, I can't even think of the word, but basically they're driverless like Waymo or the, other technology programs that we see now where you basically don't have to have a human being sitting in the driver's seat to navigate that vehicle from one place to another. And I was like, I never would have thought that I would see the day where we would not need truck drivers. And once again, it's a reminder that things are constantly going to shift. So you have to make sure that one thing that you have to do is pay attention to that. Don't assume that wherever you are in whatever role that you play, that it's always going to be safe. That is absolutely not true. And that is from me, the child of a truck driver, and me as a former educator who was thinking we will always need teachers and this and that. I'm seeing shifts in both of those industries right now like I never thought I would have. The second thing that you can't control is layoffs. You cannot control if you are going to be the one that is affected by job loss. So however you want to call it, layoffs, rifts, reductions, it's pretty much all the same. If it's a government furlough, if it's a RIF, these basically mean that you are let go from your job. You are experiencing some type of job loss. That, unfortunately, is not something that you can control. I don't think you're ever going to be able to position yourself where you have a 100% guarantee that you will never, ever be affected by job loss. And I've been in that exact situation myself, and I learned so many lessons, even though I do the career coaching. I think probably the hardest lesson that I had to learn was when I was personally affected by a layoff. And I really thought that, hey, I know all the tips. I know all the tricks. I know how to put together a perfectly formatted resume. I know how to do the LinkedIn engagement. I'm going to be good. And when it happened to me, and you can go back and look at a previous episode where I really laid out all of the things that I thought were going to allow me to just be okay. And I was wrong. Just wasn't the case. It took me 7 months to find my next role. And, I say that very humbly as someone that really positioned myself as an expert in this whole career transition field. And there were a lot of things that I just got wrong. And one of the last elements, and I'm going to tell you about this being something that's within your control, is the human connections that I didn't leverage as heavily as I should have. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But basically, you can't say that whatever you're doing or whatever industry that you're in, that it's always going to be safe, or whatever role that you're in right now, thinking, I'm just going to stay right here because the job market is so volatile and this company is always going to need this and they're always going to need me because I'm so valuable. I don't want you to be in that little comfort zone and just take a blind eye to everything else. My goal is that you are always prepared in case of a job loss. Not that you're sitting back being paranoid about it, but that you are always prepared in case something happens to you like that. You want to have some type of emergency plan, or at least know who are the first three people that I'm going to call if something like this happens to me, because that's going to be how you get ahead of everybody else. Remember I talked about the lady that came to me with the job posting and just knew that she was going to get that job? We got to be real about what's going to work and what's not, because we ain't playing about our money. And anything that is going to give you the edge is always going to be what I have you focus on first. Something else that you don't have control over are hiring practices. And this is coming from, me in my 50s, understanding how this continues to shift. Hiring practices, when I first, again, got my first real big girl job, it was very different because I was coming in as a baby teacher to a school district. And the way that we hired people back then was at job fairs. And with those job fairs, we basically, as the candidates, we were expected to show up with multiple paper copies of our resume, paper copies of your resume. And you were supposed to have the real nice, heavy paper. And, I have to pause because this was way back in the 90s, back in the old days. And with that paper resume, you came in and somebody greeted you with a clipboard where you filled out a paper application, and they called you to go and talk to a recruiter or whatever hiring manager who sat right there across from you the same day, probably within the first 15 minutes of you arriving, and just started interviewing you for whatever pool of open roles that they had. A lot of times after a quick background check, you knew if you had the job within a couple of days. Well, now that's not the case. Hiring practices right now are completely automated. They are completely digital, and they're kind of designed so that you never interact with a human being until you get to a later round in the hiring process. And you might want to sit back and just say, you know what, this is too overwhelming. It's so hard to get the attention of recruiters or whomever the decision makers are. I'm just going to sit back and not bother. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to still be proactive. If you need to make a career shift, some type of transition, then I want to give you the tips that actually work and have you let go of the outdated practices that aren't going to yield any results. So what happens now with hiring practices, like I said, it's highly digital, and it's meant to keep you disconnected from other human beings more than anything else. You can't control anything about that process, which is why I'm always saying, if you can leverage the human beings within your network, again, going back to that point, that's where you want to put your energy, not by playing the volume game. That's the mistake that I made. Playing the volume game by making sure that you submit 30, 40 applications in a day, or that you have all of these different versions of your resume because you're going to match keywords to the job posting and to what you have in your resume. That doesn't work. And I'm saying this as somebody that has done professional resume writing. I still do professional resume writing on occasion. But the bottom line is that if you are able to connect early, quickly with the human beings that are the decision makers in the hiring process, that's what's going to yield results. So that's where you need to put all of your energy. That's what you can control. Here's something else that, and I do remind people of this because I do a lot of social media marketing. And that is the infamous algorithm. Folks use that term very regularly now to talk about it like it's some type of boogeyman where the algorithm is working against me. And again, I'm talking about the hiring practices being increasingly digital and automated so that you're not talking to human beings. So there's this, fear, or maybe, people being pissed off that the algorithm is dismissing them or counting them out from opportunities very quickly. And That's not something you can control. The algorithm is going to shift. The algorithm is basically just digital code that is filtering what matches you from the rest of the world. You have no control over that. So to sit back and waste a lot of time and energy trying to navigate the algorithm just frankly is a waste of time. So I'm always going to say that whatever the digital tools are that you think are working against you, don't sit there and spend too much time trying to overthink it, trying to over prepare to play the game or play that system, because it frankly is always going to feel like it's working against you. You will never have it completely figured out, because as soon as you think you're working the digital game correctly, it's going to shift. The way that it works, the software behind the scenes, it's all going to shift and you will never be ahead of that game. So don't worry about it. The algorithm is not working against you, but it also is something that you shouldn't spend too much time trying to make sure that you've got it down perfectly. And quite frankly, if you look back on all of these points that I'm making, if you spend too much time and energy on that, you're going to feel powerless. And I don't want that for you, because if you're making some type of transition, especially at this age, this midlife season, you have so much that is working for you and so many tools in your back pocket that you can leverage, that I want you to be in a position where you feel like you are in control. You know what tools to pull out to accomplish whatever task. And the things that are not going to yield results, just dismiss them. Simple as that. Now, in spite of there being these things that I've mentioned that are very much out of your control, that you should not waste any time and energy focusing on, let me run down the things that you actually do need to spend some time thinking about. First thing, obvious, you do need an updated resume. No, you will never have it completely perfect. No, there is never going to be one particular format that's going to win every single time, but it does need to be current. One mistake that a lot of midlife professionals are going to make is that they want to put their entire biography in their resume, and that sucker can be 4 and 5 pages long. And the first thing that I will coach you if you ever come to work with me is that I'm going to tell you to cut it down to 2 pages. 2 pages in length. Don't go over that. And you're probably screaming like, there's no way I can fit all of my professional experience in a 2-page resume. Well, you actually can if you reduce your work history down to the most recent 10 to 12 years of relevant work experience. That is how you get it down to 2 pages completely, so that you're not sending something to whomever, a recruiter or whatever job posting, thinking that anybody is actually going to read multiple pages of your resume. Quite frankly, you are not that special. And if they've got dozens, hundreds, 1,000 applicants that are applying for whatever role that you're in competition for, they're only going to read really the first half of the first page of that resume. So that's one piece. I have lots of information, lots of past episodes that can help you with what to and what not to put in your updated resume. But the main thing that you can control is that you keep it always updated and ready when opportunities come around. Here's the second thing that you can control, and that is upskilling yourself. And upskilling yourself does not mean that you are going back to school for a 3-year degree. That may be necessary in certain fields, but I'm going to boldly say that the vast majority of the things you may want to do probably don't require you going back to school for a full degree program. What it might entail is you going back for a certification at the most, and that is not going to be, number one, a heavy financial investment, nor is it going to take you 2-3 years to complete. What I usually like to recommend for folks is, just to keep your skills current, go online and research what short certifications that you can test out or sample to see if that is going to be a good fit for you to make a deeper time investment. And it's going to change. It's going to, shift depending on your industry or what types of roles that you're going for. If you're in your late 40s and 50s, you're probably applying for roles that are more senior. So the certifications are probably going to be a little bit more specialized, or the types of hours of practice that need to go into something. It's probably going to be more highly specialized to someone with your level of experience. Before you decide, you know what, I need to go back and get this certification and it's going to take me 2 years to get it, go online, go someplace like LinkedIn and just peruse their course catalog and see if there might be something there for the cost of your $30 monthly membership that you're able to take care of just within a couple of days, to give you an idea of, number one, the types of the language, the other things that are connected to whatever that skill set is, before you make that kind of deep time commitment. So many times when people say that they need to go back and get more education for a role, a lot of times it's just procrastination. It's a very intellectual way of putting off doing direct work, taking direct action. And I say this as somebody that has gone the entire educational race, someone that has invested tens of thousands of dollars into getting a master's degree and then a doctorate degree. And with either of those, I can say that if I knew what I know now, I probably would not have invested that money getting those traditional university degrees. But again, I can't say that I regret it, but it definitely is something that I think about very regularly if it was really necessary for the way my career ultimately shifted. So take it from me, somebody who has paid the money, somebody who has done all the studying and even written the book, that it's not always necessary to go back and get all of that formal education. It might just be some simple courses that you can take online that would take you no more than a couple of days and a couple of bucks to get you upskilled and in position for whatever it is you're trying to do next. The next thing that is totally within your control is maintaining a career portfolio. I will always recommend that you keep score of all of the wins, all of your accomplishments, all of the projects where you were able to produce some type of measurable positive result for your organization or somewhere in your industry. And here's the thing, nobody is paying attention. Nobody is watching and remembering when you have come in clutch for your organization, when you were the person that basically scored the game-winning touchdown for a particular project. That is always going to be your responsibility to make sure that you are keeping your own score. And the place where you collect all of those wins, the place where you are able to basically tell those stories and bring them together visually or in an organized manner, is going to be in a career portfolio. That, as well as your updated resume, those are two things that need to stay regularly updated by you. And you can't depend on your memory to serve you when it's time for you to show up and basically justify all of the things that you've accomplished in your career. You have to do those things in the moment. And I will tell you that right now, at the time of recording this, I'm 53 years old. I will not remember what I had for lunch today because my memory has gotten so bad. And it might just not even be my memory. It might just be, all the things that I've got going on in life. My focus is on 15 different areas. And it's just unreal to think that these really important things that are happening in my career, or things that I want to be able to showcase later, that I can assume that I'm going to naturally remember them in conversations. No, I actually need to make it a regular practice to go through and record these things in a very organized way so that when opportunities come along, I've already got this thing that I can pull from. I've got this portfolio or this updated resume that I'm able to present to someone on a moment's notice. And if you have trouble doing this and you're trying to figure out, well, God, yeah, I need to do this too, then you need to download my Collect Your Receipts guide. That is going to be your way of simply, using my step-by-step formula. I'm all about you winning, my dear. So I'm not making this complicated and it's not super techy. It's going to be a simple, repeatable formula for you to be able to record those moments when you have made a significant impact, measurable impact on your organization that you need to be able to recall later when opportunities come along. And those opportunities might not even be about changing jobs. It might be within your current role for your current organization, and you're positioning yourself for a promotion or for that quarterly bonus. This is how, or I won't say how, this is what you need to be able to articulate your value in those high stakes conversations. So get my guide. The link is in the description, and that's going to help you do that. The next thing that is within your control, and I will just say right now, hey, this is probably, of all the things that I want you to remember or to maintain within your control, is building and nurturing your professional network. And that is going to be both in real life and online. I don't know which one of those you might have been triggered by me saying it. Maybe it's, you're like, oh, networking, it sounds cringy, or going online, I'm just not techie. You got to get over whatever that is. And the reason why is, from what I said earlier, your next opportunity is going to come from another human being. People hire people. People promote people. People remember people when it's time to expand or offer opportunities. And trying to figure out ways to game the system or game the algorithm is pointless, because ultimately it's going to be folks that you know that are going to make the difference in your career trajectory. So I use this statement all the time with clients and when I'm teaching. And I want to say this to you right now: who you know is just as important as what you know in this phase of your career. So let me break that down, because your professional network is going to be the people that you know in real life, the people that you've worked beside, the folks, organizations that you've worked for previously, anybody that knows you in real life and is able to vouch for how valuable you are and what you're able to do for an organization. When you're looking for your job, instead of going on those job boards and just looking at all the different postings, instead of doing that, you need to be picking up the phone and calling people. You need to be having coffee talks. You need to be making the rounds at different networking opportunities where you are letting people know, this is me, that I'm available, that this is the value that I bring. Here's the skills that I have, and I want to come and do this for you. That is how you get ahead. And anytime that you're thinking that that feels cheesy, I don't want to network, it feels cringy, I just want you to think, do you want to sit back waiting for something to feel more comfortable, or do you want to get the damn job? Be real and just think, if you get over some of these things that you're resisting, it's probably what's going to unlock whatever the next opportunity is. So you've got to get in the habit of talking to people more, letting real folks in your network know when you're open for opportunities. And it may not even be right now. You just want them to have you top of mind when the time comes, when the need arises. And you also need to be more visible online. If it's something that you've been resisting because you think being on LinkedIn or being on social media is just not for you, I have some bad news for you, because it absolutely is a tool that you can use to get more visible and to be able to position yourself as a thought leader within your particular area, your specialization of expertise. And I'm not talking about being an influencer. I'm not talking about being, a YouTuber like me. I'm talking about simply using that as your personal place to showcase who you are and what you know. It doesn't mean that you've always got to be in front of a camera. It doesn't mean that you've got to check your phone every 5 minutes, but it does mean that when you are in a situation of trying to make a career transition or advance your career in any way, people are going to Google you. People are going to look you up. Decision makers are going to want to research you. And if they go to a place like LinkedIn and you have no presence, you have no recent activity, you're going to look out of touch. And at your age, if you are in your late 40s, 50s, 60s, and you're still in the professional game, you still hustling, you still making money, the last thing you want is to look out of touch. You don't want to look like the old person in the game. And, remember, ageism is still a factor that you are fighting against. I don't care how stellar your record is, I don't care how high you've climbed in this game, you are still the mature person that they are waiting to say that she's aged out or that she's no longer with it or she's not as sharp as she used to be. It's real. So to be able to take your years of experience as an asset and not a deficiency, you've got to make sure that you have a strong online presence and you use places that are free to you, like LinkedIn, to basically be your stage, for it to be your spotlight, for you to be able to take that and position yourself as the thought leader you are. So I want to give you a quick little activity that you can do when you are stressing out over the things you can control and the things that are outside of your control. So for this activity, I want you to just get a sheet of paper and you're going to write down 3 things about this whole career transition or career advancement that is totally stressing you out. Just write that down on a sheet of paper. Then I want you to really give it some thought. Are those 3 things that are stressing you out, are they in your control? Is it something that you can truly focus on and impact the outcome? Now, with those things, if they are, if there's multi facets to it, and you can't just say cleanly yes or no, it's in or out of my control, think about the aspects of it that really are within your control. And just write a little bit of information about that based on the conversation that we've already had here today. And what I want you to do, the things that are within your control, once you kind of scribble that in the notes, I want you to take one of those actions that you are going to focus on right now. So if it's within your control, based on the advice that you've now learned here, I want you to take that and make sure that you have optimized whatever that element is so that it is something that you can focus positive energy on. And not only that, I want it to be, if I'm saying that you're going to do it within the next couple of days, I want you to put a date on it. So if today is, February 1st, I want you to put a completion date on it that you're going to have it done or completed by February 5th. Give yourself a realistic deadline within the next week so that whatever that one element is, whatever that one task is, you will actually get it done within the next week. Something that is within your control that you can now push forward in this whole career transition process. And you might be thinking, okay, one little thing, that's not going to make a difference. And I'm going to push back on you and say, yes, it does. All of these things that we've talked about today, they are small. They're little things that you're able to do, but you assume that they're insignificant until you get that phone call that you've either been laid off or you get the phone call that there's an opportunity and somebody wants to talk to you about it. And all of the things that we've discussed here, you have to scramble to get them ready. You've got to go into some mad frenzy to get an updated resume or have a portfolio, or you realize that you haven't done crap on your LinkedIn for the past 2 years and you have that cold sweat of, oh my God, I'm not ready. Well, if we do these little things one step at a time, one tiny piece at a time, then you are able to get ready and stay ready, and you will be the one that's in control then. So if this episode was helpful to you, then I definitely want to hear from you. Comment below if there is some part of this that really resonated with you. If you are stressing out about one particular piece, I want you to try this exercise. The old teacher in me is still, thinking of it like a Venn diagram. And that's how I get through certain tough things where I have to constantly separate what's within my control and what's outside of my control. Once I am able to take the things outside of my control, like, are they going to like me? Simple things that we will stress out. Or I said, I'm going to say something. If it's out of my control, then I'm not going to put any sweat towards it. I'm going to focus more energy towards the things that I can actually fix, the things that I can build, the things that I know that if I put a little bit of sweat towards it, that's going to pay off in the long run. So it lowers my anxiety. It's a way that I'm able to, position and calm my nervous system when I go into these high pressure conversations or any situation where I feel like there's money on the other side of it. This is how I stay calm and focused. I only look at the things that I know I can directly impact, and that's what I want for you. So again, I want to hear from you. Put it in the comments and let me know if this was helpful or if there might have been some elements that I missed. Definitely share this with any of your midlife buddies that might be in a similar situation and they need this guidance as well. But more than anything, you can look in the description for the different resources that I have. I have one, which is my Collect Your Receipts guide. And then I've also got a live class that I teach called Beyond the Resume, where we go through all of this in small groups so that all of these little things I'm talking about that are within your control, we actually build them together. So at the end of the period, you walk away with all of this done and you are able to position yourself in a calm state of control for whatever that career transition is going to be. So thanks for joining me here. I am always happy to share what I know from hard lessons that I've learned. If you found this valuable, definitely subscribe to the channel, and I will keep showing up here to share all the midlife tips that are going to make this season your best one yet. So thanks for stopping by, and I will see you next time.